Welcome back to Josie's story. I've got my energy drink here. I don't drink coffee anymore. And I want to tell you just a short blurb. I want to kind of drive home like where Nathan and I were in the spring of 2020, because what it really was going on is we had this very normal pregnancy. All three of our other pregnancies were very normal, and then suddenly this one wasn't, and that was right in the middle of the first round of shutdowns. And so the world was upside down, right? People were fighting over toilet paper. People couldn't get what they needed. You couldn't go to the grocery store without masks and gloves, and like it was chaos. Just take yourself back there. It was absolute chaos. And then on top of that, we got a very scary diagnosis, preliminary diagnosis for Josie. I thought that I was going to go birth a baby and then not ever take her home. I thought we were going to birth her and bury her in the same weekend. I would go into what was Charlotte's room and clean up and just think to myself, is this ever going to be Josephine's room? I was terrified, just really terrified, but we had to keep going in life. We have 3 other kids. We had jobs. Nathan and I were still working, even though it was in the middle of all the shutdowns. He and I guess, were considered essential. You know how that goes. And so we were still working, and so we'd go to work, and we'd come home and we'd take care of our kids. And then I was going to doctor's appointments 2 or 3 times a week for the majority of that, like, last section of the pregnancy. But we didn't tell anybody what was going on. We told very, very close family and very, very close friends. Very few people knew. I would say a total of like maybe 12. We didn't even tell our kids what was going on. We didn't tell our kids what was going on until I came home from the hospital. And so we were kind of struggling with this silently. And the reason we did that was because there was already so much unrest in the world that we didn't want to add to it. And if I were to go back, I would tell myself to share, because people really needed some hope to cling to. And back then, and it's amazing to me just like how much Josie has brought people together since she's been born. And I hate to think that maybe there was people that didn't get to be brought together because we were so silent on it. But there was one time, like, our small group came over to our house, and we stood outside in the cul-de-sac, and they prayed for us, and I got really, really sunburnt. I had a headband on like this, and I got a line across my forehead. And then I spent the rest of the year inside, so it never seasoned out. And so like I had a line across my forehead for 6 months. It was horrible. I would put makeup on it or another headband like all the time. Anyways, and so we were just really numb to a lot of what was going on with Josie, and there was not a whole lot of information to go on, because it was just ultrasounds, and there was nothing we could do about it. We weren't going to do an amniocentesis that can cause miscarriage, and it wasn't going to really give us any answers. And so we just were baby stepping it and taking tiny steps towards delivery. Honestly, we felt, even though we had told some of our closest friends, we felt pretty alone, because as much as you love somebody that's going through something, you can't go through it like they're going through it, right? So if you have a friend whose child has cancer, like, you can bring them food and pray for them and everything, but you're not experiencing what they're experiencing. And so for us, it was like we felt loved and supported, but we also felt very alone because of all of this, and incredibly anxious. Like, I think that goes without saying, like, incredibly anxious. We actually had a scare at about 33 weeks pregnant. I went in for like a regular appointment. Nathan actually met me there, which was very rare, and they couldn't find her heartbeat. And So they took me over. Remember, the hospital where I go to is like, there's a children's hospital and then an adult hospital with like a sky bridge attaching it. So they walked me over to the emergency room triage for like the maternal triage. And they eventually found her heartbeat, but that really drove home that like she could be born any day. And I think that was 33 weeks. All of my other children had been born past 40 weeks. And so the fact that like I could maybe have a baby at 33, 34 weeks was a little strange and kind of petrifying at the same time. And so what I ended up doing was packing a bag and putting it in my front seat, and I kept it there until she was born. And so I every single week we would like cross our fingers. You notice how I can't cross this finger very well, but like look at that. I also had something called polyhydramnios. I know of some women that have had this. It's excess fluid levels. You're supposed to have between 8 and 18 centimeters of fluid on top of the size of the baby. So when you look at an ultrasound, all the black is the fluid. And so when I would have an ultrasound, it would be like this was the baby and this was the fluid, right? Because it was just so insane just how much fluid there was. And it became very dangerous. And so at 34 weeks, they were like, let's try and hold on for a couple more weeks because, or at 33 with that scare, they're like, let's hold on for a few more weeks because the baby's lungs are more developed as you go on. So I was like, okay. So at 34 weeks, they said, you're extremely high. If you don't go down by next week, we're having a baby. I said, okay. So then that was a Thursday. The following Monday was Memorial Day. And I remember telling everybody in my office, hey, I'm having a baby this weekend. This is what you need to know about, you know, what I'm doing. And they just stared at me. They were all young, either brand new married or unmarried, and nobody had kids. And they were like, what are you talking about? Why are you so calm? I'm like, it's no big deal. And in fact, I did. I went that Thursday, which would have been the 28th of May, and they all gave me an ultrasound and they said, absolutely, you're having a baby. Go right now and have a baby. And so I said, I'm going home first. I'm going to get my husband. I'm going to say goodbye to my kids and I'll be back in like 5 hours. And they just stared at me and they're like, we don't want you on the interstate. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. So, because my polyhydramnios was so bad. But I just want to like, if anybody's watching this and maybe you're going through something, you have a support group for a reason. Even if you tell people you need support, you need help, but they can't live it for you. And that's very isolating feeling. And this whole journey with Josie, we've had great support, but you guys can't walk it for us. And I can't walk it for her. She's in the kitchen over here. I can't walk it for her. She has to walk this life herself. But I can be there to support her. The one thing that happened right before she was born, so it was like 34 weeks or something. Earlier in the week, my pastor called me. Remember, I was on staff at my church, and he was like, well, no, he didn't call me. He texted me, and he's like, I heard something's going on with the baby, and I hadn't told anybody. I mean, I told my boss, and that's it. And so he was very concerned, of course, and so the whole staff came and prayed for me about a week before the baby was born. And the morning I went, so the morning of the 28th, I went to a all staff meeting, and then I went to the doctor, and they said, go have a baby. And so I was like, I'm not coming back, guys. I went back into the group chat. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. I'm gonna go have a baby. So there we go. This was a little bit longer than I wanted, but that's part 2. Let me know. I'm still trying to figure out the comments, so let me know if this is something that's interesting you, what you want to see more of, and I hope you guys have a good day.